He called me pathetic, begging for money in the empire I built with my own 2 hands. My own son. He thought he'd won the war. He didn't know I was about to burn his kingdom down. If you're listening to this story, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. Let me back up and tell you how a Thanksgiving dinner destroyed my family. The turkey was perfect, golden brown, smelling of sage and rosemary. It sat untouched in the center of the table. My penthouse apartment overlooked the entire city. Usually this room was filled with laughter. Tonight the silence was heavy, thick. I looked around the table. My family, the people I had sacrificed everything for. I'm David Harrison. I built Harrison Financial Group from nothing. Wall Street powerhouse. It took decades of sweat, relentless pressure, high stakes. But it gave my children everything. Elite schools, luxury cars, doors opened wherever they went. I thought I was being a good father. I was wrong. My son Mark sat across from me. 35, tailored suit. He swirled his scotch, staring into the glass. He wouldn't look at me. He hadn't looked at me all night. Beside him was Chloe, his wife. Beautiful. Cold. Her face was an icy mask. She tapped her manicured nails on her wine glass. Click, click, click. Then there was Emily, my daughter. 32. She looked anxious, uncomfortable. She kept fiddling with her necklace, a gift from her mother. Laura, my wife, passed away 5 years ago. The grief nearly broke me. I buried myself in work, and I spoiled them. Trust funds, high-paying jobs at my company. I covered every exorbitant expense. I wasn't showing love. I was funding their entitlement. And the bill was coming due. 3 months ago, Mark came to my office. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A tech startup, ready to explode. He needed $1 million. A short-term loan, Dad, he promised. Just until the IPO. 90 days max. I hesitated. The market was volatile. $1 million is a lot of liquidity. But he was my son. Ambitious. Driven. Just like me, or so I thought. I authorized the transfer. I trusted him. That was my first mistake. The IPO never happened. Yet Mark and Chloe just bought a multi-million-dollar townhouse, the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. We were barely past the appetizers. The tension was unbearable. I couldn't wait any longer. I cleared my throat. The sound was too loud in the quiet room. Mark, I started, setting down my fork. We need to talk about that loan. Silence. The $1 million, I continued. The 90 days are up. The firm needs that capital. We have a merger coming up. I waited for a response. I waited for an explanation. I got something else entirely. Mark stiffened. He didn't look guilty. He didn't look apologetic. He looked annoyed, as if I had brought up an unpleasant chore. Dad, seriously? He finally looked up, his eyes cold. It's Thanksgiving. I know what day it is, Mark, I said, keeping my voice level. But business doesn't stop for the holidays. We agreed. 90 days. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. It's complicated, Dad. These things take time. Complicated. The word hung in the air. A dismissal. A brush-off. He thought that was enough. He thought I would just let it go. Chloe sighed dramatically. She set her wine glass down with a sharp click. David, honestly, she drawled, her voice dripping with disdain. You know how these things work. The IPO is delayed. It's perfectly normal. She looked at me like I was a child who didn't understand the adult world. Honestly, your constant worrying about money is exhausting, she added, examining her nails. Exhausting. My worry. My money. I felt a muscle twitch in my jaw. It's not worrying when I need the capital for a strategic acquisition. I said, my voice hardening. The board is asking questions. I shouldn't have mentioned the board. It was a trigger. Mark slammed his hand on the table. Silverware jumped. Wine sloshed in the glasses. The board, he shouted, his face turning red. That's all you ever talk about. Mark, lower your voice, I said, trying to maintain control. No, he spat. Maybe if you listened to me instead of those old fossils, the company would be doing better. The insult landed like a punch. Old fossils. He was talking about my mentors, my friends, and by extension, me. The company is doing fine, I snapped, my patience gone. It's doing well enough to fund your lifestyle, apparently. I pointed at the diamond necklace around Chloe's throat. And yours. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. This was it. The moment everything changed. That's when he said it. The words that shattered the fragile facade of our family. He stood up, towering over the table. His face was contorted with indignation. Not fear, not shame, pure arrogant rage. You know what, Dad? Just stop it. He leaned closer, his voice low and menacing. Stop begging for money. Silence, dead silence. It's embarrassing, he continued, his words precise, meant to inflict maximum damage. You sound pathetic. Begging. Pathetic. My heart stopped. The blood drained from my face. I couldn't breathe. I looked at Emily, my sweet, sensitive daughter. She was staring intently at her plate. Her cheeks were flushed. She refused to meet my eyes. I waited for her to say something, to defend me, to defend the father who had given her everything. But she just nodded, slowly. Her silence was a betrayal louder than Mark's words. He's right, Dad, Emily murmured, her voice barely audible. It's a holiday. Can we not do this today? They all thought it. I was the bank of Dad, and I was annoying them with my withdrawal limits. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The hurt was so deep it paralyzed me. For a moment I just sat there, broken, but then a cold clarity washed over me. A terrifying calm. I had allowed this. I had created these monsters by never saying no, by confusing indulgence with love. I smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who finally realized the rules had changed. And I was the one changing them. You're right, honey, I said, my voice eerily calm. I used the endearment Laura used to use. It felt strange on my tongue. Mark looked surprised, then smug. He thought he had won. He thought I had backed down. It is embarrassing, I continued, picking up my napkin and folding it neatly. I apologize for bringing it up. Let's enjoy the rest of the evening. Mark sat back down, victorious. Chloe patted his arm, a small triumphant smile playing on her lips. They resumed their conversation. St. Bart's their upcoming trip. As if nothing had happened. As if I wasn't even there. They thought the crisis was over. It was just beginning. Under the table, hidden from their view, I pulled out my phone. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. I texted John, my personal banker. He had been with me for 30 years. Loyal, discreet. Discreet. Night, John. Cancel all supplementary credit cards for Mark Harrison and Emily Harrison. Immediately. I didn't stop there. They would freeze their trust funds. Effective now, John replied instantly. The man never stopped working. David? Everything okay? It's Thanksgiving. Just do it. Quietly. Confirm when done. I waited. The longest minute of my life. A minute later, the confirmation came. Done. Call me. I put my phone away. I watched them laugh, oblivious, entitled. They were celebrating their victory, unaware that the ground beneath their feet had just crumbled. I picked up my wine glass. A toast, I said, my voice loud enough to interrupt their conversation. They looked at me, surprised. To family? I said, holding up my glass. They raised theirs, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. And to consequences, I whispered to myself, taking a sip. The war had begun. The next morning, my study, the city waking up below. The penthouse was quiet, peaceful. I sat with my coffee, watching the sunrise. I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight of their expectations was gone, replaced by the cold, hard reality of my decision. The phone rang at 8 a.m. sharp, right on schedule. Mark, I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. I picked up. Hello? The screaming was immediate, a high-pitched sound of pure, unadulterated outrage. What did you do? I took a sip of coffee. Good morning, Mark. What seems to be the problem? The problem? The problem? He was sputtering, incoherent. My card was declined. At the tailor, I was picking up my new suits. But that wasn't the worst part. Chloe is at Bergdorf's, he continued, his voice rising in panic. They cut up her card in front of everyone. She's humiliated. Good. Humiliation was a powerful teacher. And I can't access my trust fund. Fix it, now. The demand. The expectation. The arrogance. It was still there. Time to end it. No, I said simply. Silence. Stunned, sputtering silence. What do you mean no? He sounded confused, like a child being denied candy for the first time. I mean, I'm not funding your life anymore, I explained, my voice calm, devoid of emotion. You're right. It was embarrassing for me to beg. I paused, letting the words sink in. So I stopped. If you want a lifestyle, you have to maintain it yourself. I was about to hang up, but he wasn't finished. You can't do this to me, he roared. I have a reputation to uphold. A reputation built on my money, I corrected him. Uphold your own reputation. With your own money? Why do you want to ruin my life? The accusation. The victimhood. I'm not ruining your life, Mark. I'm just no longer funding it. He launched into a torrent of abuse, threats, demands, promises of retaliation. I listened calmly for a moment, feeling nothing but pity. Pity for the man he had become. Then I hung up. The silence returned. But this time, it felt different. It felt like freedom. Emily called a few hours later. I expected anger. I expected demands. I got tears. Dad? Her voice was small, trembling. My card didn't work at the gallery. She was trying to buy a painting, another addition to her expensive collection. It was so embarrassing, Dad, she whispered. My heart twisted. Emily had always been the sensitive one, the one I thought I could reach. But she had stayed silent. She had chosen the path of least resistance, and that silence had consequences. I'm sorry you were embarrassed, Emily, I said, my voice softening slightly, but you need to understand something. I paused, choosing my words carefully. When your brother humiliated me last night, you said nothing. You sided with him. I didn't, she protested, her voice rising. I didn't want to cause a scene, Dad. And by avoiding a scene, you enabled his behavior, I explained, the cold reality settling in. You chose comfort over integrity. The line was quiet. I could hear her crying softly. The free ride is over, sweetheart, for both of you. If you need real help, I'm here, but the limitless spending stops now. I hung up, the weight of my decisions settling heavily on my shoulders. This was harder than I thought, but necessary. I thought the financial freeze would bring them to their senses. I thought it would force them to face reality. I didn't realize it would push them to desperation, and desperate people do dangerous things. The next day, my office, Harrison Financial Group. I called a meeting with Sarah Jenkins, my chief financial officer, sharp, ruthless, been with the firm for 20 years. I trusted her implicitly. Been with the firm for 20 years. I trusted her implicitly. Been with the firm for 20 years. I trusted her implicitly. Been with the firm for 20 years. I trusted her implicitly. She walked in, holding a file, her expression serious. She always used a red pen. It made her corrections look like bloodstains. Sarah, I need you to do something for me, I said, rubbing the bridge of my nose. The stress was starting to get to me. Anything, David? She replied, sitting down. I need you to conduct a forensic audit of Mark's accounts. Specifically, the $1 million loan I authorized 3 months ago. I expected her to jump right into action, but she hesitated. Sarah looked troubled. Her loyalty to the firm was absolute, but she also knew the complexities of family dynamics. David, she started carefully, Mark is your son. Are you sure you want to do this? An audit like this, it can get ugly. I have to, I said, my voice firm. Something about this investment doesn't feel right. The timing, the townhouse, his reaction at Thanksgiving. It wasn't just suspicion, it was instinct, the same instinct that had guided me on Wall Street for decades. And my instinct told me this was bad, very bad. Okay, David, Sarah said, nodding slowly, I'll get started. Quietly, we started digging. Mark had provided documentation for the tech startup, Innovate Tech Solutions. It looked legitimate on the surface. Financial projections, business plan, market analysis. But Sarah, with her meticulous eye for detail, noticed something. Something I had missed. David, look at this, she said, pointing at the financial projections with her red pen. These numbers, they're too perfect, too polished. It looks like a template. She pointed at the company address. And this address, it's just a P.O. box. A knot tightened in my stomach. A P.O. box. No office. No lab. No employees. If this story is keeping you hooked, drop a like. It means a lot. It was time to dig deeper. Sarah made a few calls, discreet inquiries. Favors called in. She checked the state business registry. She came back to my office an hour later. Her face was grim. Inquiries. Favors called in. She checked the state business registry. She came back to my office an hour later. Her face was grim. David, she said, closing the door behind her. Innovate Tech Solutions doesn't exist. Silence. The words hung in the air. It's a shell company, she continued. Registered 3 months ago, the same day you authorized the loan. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut, stealing my breath. It wasn't just a bad investment, it was a lie. Mark hadn't used the $1 million for a startup. He had laundered it. He had created fake documentation, forged signatures, fabricated an entire company to hide the truth. Where did the money go, Sarah? I asked, my voice trembling. She laid out the bank records, the transfers, the withdrawals, gambling debts, she said, her voice cold and precise. Massive gambling debts, paid off immediately after the transfer. The rest? The down payment on the townhouse, she finished. There was no startup, no IPO, no investment. It was all a calculated deception, a betrayal. He hadn't just been ungrateful. He hadn't just been entitled. He had stolen from me. My own son had committed fraud. The depth of the betrayal was staggering. I felt sick to my stomach. How could I have been so blind? I thought back to Thanksgiving dinner. His anger, his indignation. It wasn't just about being asked for the money. It was fear. Fear of being caught. He had tried to bully me into silence, to shame me into submission, to protect his secret. The realization brought a new, terrifying dilemma. This was fraud, a crime. I could report him to the police, send my own son to jail, create a public scandal that would destroy our family name, the reputation of the firm, or I could handle it privately, demand repayment, protect him from the legal consequences. But would he learn his lesson, or would he just get better at hiding his crimes? I needed to confront him, to see his face, to see if there was any remorse, any possibility of redemption. I thought that was the worst of it. I thought the fraud was the bottom of the rabbit hole. I was wrong. It went much, much deeper. A few days later, I was preparing for the confrontation with Mark. My lawyer was drafting the demand letter. Then I received a call, an unexpected call. Mr. Henderson, my mentor, the former chairman of the board, retired now, living in a modest apartment, but still sharp as a tack. David, his voice was frail, trembling. I need to see you. It's urgent. He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. It's about Mark. My blood ran cold. What now? I met him at his apartment. He looked old, frail. His hands trembled as he poured me a cup of tea, but his eyes were clear, focused, and terrified. He took off his glasses, cleaned them meticulously, a habit he always had before delivering bad news. David, he started, his voice heavy with regret. I didn't want to believe it. I prayed I was wrong. He handed me a file, thick, detailed. But I have proof. I opened the file. My hands were shaking. Mark has been manipulating the stock prices of several companies in our portfolio, Mr. Henderson said, his voice barely audible. I stared at the documents, the trades, the timings, the patterns. He's been insider trading, David. Insider trading. The ultimate betrayal of trust. The death knell for any financial firm. The magnitude of the crime was staggering. It dwarfed the $1 million fraud. How do you know? I whispered, my throat tight. He tried to recruit me, Mr. Henderson confessed, shame written on his face. He said he had a sure thing, a way to make some real money. He pointed at the file. He gave me the details, the names of the companies, the timing of the announcements. I checked with my sources. He's been doing this for months. He looked at me, his eyes filled with pity. He's been using offshore accounts to hide the money. Millions, David, millions. He wasn't just stealing from me. He was jeopardizing the entire firm, the livelihood of hundreds of employees, the savings of thousands of clients, everything I had built, everything I stood for. He's dangerous, David, Mr. Henderson warned, his voice hardening. He's reckless. He has no conscience. I knew he was right. I saw it in Mark's eyes at Thanksgiving. The arrogance, the lack of empathy. I had to stop him, before he destroyed everything. The decision was no longer about redemption. It was about survival. I knew what I had to do, but first I needed to see him. One last time. I decided to go to their townhouse, the monument to their greed, built with my money. I didn't call ahead. I needed the element of surprise. I needed to confront them in their lair, surrounded by the spoils of their betrayal. I arrived at the townhouse. Music was playing loudly. Laughter echoed from inside. Through the large front window I could see them, hosting a party, celebrating their success, while my world was falling apart. I rang the doorbell. Chloe answered, holding a champagne flute, dressed in a designer gown. Her smile vanished when she saw me, replaced by a look of annoyance. David, she drawled, looking me up and down. What are you doing here? We're entertaining. She didn't invite me in. She blocked the doorway, as if I was a salesman interrupting her evening. I need to talk to Mark, I said calmly, pushing past her into the foyer. The townhouse was opulent, vulgar. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, expensive art on the walls, all paid for with stolen money. Mark appeared, his face flushed with alcohol, a glass of scotch in his hand. "Dad," he said, surprised. "This isn't a good time." "It's the only time," I said, my voice echoing in the large foyer. The party was in full swing, the elite of the city, mingling, laughing, oblivious to the crimes committed by their hosts. Then I saw her, a young woman, waitress uniform, the elite of the city, mingling, laughing, oblivious to the crimes committed by their hosts. Then I saw her, a young woman, waitress uniform. Struggling to carry a heavy tray of champagne glasses, she looked terrified, exhausted. She stumbled. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the room. The music stopped. The conversations died. All eyes turned to the girl. She stood there, frozen in horror. Champagne dripped onto the marble floor. Chloe rushed over to her, her face contorted in a cruel sneer. "You stupid girl," she shrieked, her voice high-pitched, hysterical. "Do you have any idea how much those glasses cost?" The girl, barely 20 years old, started crying, apologizing profusely. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Harrison," she whispered, trembling. "It was an accident. I'll pay for them." Her name was Maria, I found out later. A student, working 2 jobs to support her family. "You can't afford them," Chloe spat, her voice dripping with venom. "You're worthless. You're incompetent." She stepped closer, her eyes blazing with cruelty. She wasn't just angry. She was enjoying this. She enjoyed making this helpless girl feel small, worthless. "You're fired," she screamed, savoring the moment. Mark laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Relax, babe," he said, taking a sip of his scotch. "She's just the help. The help, the same way they saw me. The help, the bank, the inconvenience." Chloe, emboldened by his support and the audience, reached out and slapped the girl hard, across the face. The sound echoed through the room, a sharp, brutal crack. The girl stood there, frozen in shock, a red handprint forming on her cheek. The cruelty was breathtaking, unnecessary, sadistic. They enjoyed it. They enjoyed it asserting their dominance, their power, over the most helpless, innocent person in the room. That was my breaking point. The moment my remaining love for my son died. The anger I felt wasn't hot and messy. It was cold, focused, and terrifyingly clear. "That's enough," I said, my voice dangerously low, focused, and terrifyingly clear. "That's enough," I said, my voice dangerously low. I stepped between Chloe and the girl. "How dare you interfere?" Chloe shrieked, her eyes wide with rage. "This is my house. It's my money," I corrected her, my voice calm, deadly. I looked at Mark. The mask was off. I saw him clearly now. A liar, a thief, a bully, and a criminal. "We are leaving," I said, looking at Mark. His face was pale, the arrogance gone, replaced by fear. "And I know," I continued, my voice clear, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I know about the gambling debts." The guests started whispering. Uneasy glances exchanged. "I know about the fake startup, Innovatech Solutions." Mark flinched. "And I know about the insider trading." The laughter died in his throat. He looked like he was going to be sick. The party was over. I gently guided the girl, Maria, out of the townhouse. I gave her my card. "Call my lawyer," I told her. "We will sue them for assault. They will pay for what they did to you." She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. As we drove away, I made a decision. There would be no more chances, no more compromises, no more mercy. It was time to protect my legacy, even if it meant destroying my son. The next morning, my office, Sarah Jenkins and my legal team. I laid everything out, the fraud, the embezzlement, the insider trading, the assault. The room was silent, the gravity of the situation hanging heavy in the air. "We have a strong case," Sarah said, her face grim. "The fraud is straightforward. The assault is witnessed by dozens of people. But there was a problem, a big problem. But the insider trading." She hesitated. "It will destroy the firm. The SEC will shut us down. The ultimate consequence, the price of Mark's greed. We have to report it," I said, my decision made. "We have to protect the clients. The employees. We have to maintain our integrity. It was a devastating choice. Cover up the crime, protect the firm. My legacy? We have to maintain our integrity. It was a devastating choice. Cover up the crime, protect the firm. My legacy? Compromise my principles? Risk jail time myself? Or report it? Destroy everything I had built? But save my soul? I chose the latter. I chose integrity. I chose the path Laura would have wanted me to take. We started preparing the report for the SEC. The clock was ticking. Meanwhile, the fallout from the frozen trust funds hit Mark and Emily hard. The financial pressure was mounting. The rumors were spreading. Their lavish lifestyle was crumbling. Emily came to see me that night. My apartment, she looked different, humbled, ashamed. "Dad," she started, her voice trembling. "I heard what happened at the party. The waitress, Chloe." She looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. "And Sarah told me about the audit, the fraud, the insider trading." She started crying. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry I didn't stand up for you." "I know, sweetheart," I said. My heart softening. I hugged her. The first real hug in years. "I was weak," she confessed. "I was afraid of Mark, afraid of losing the lifestyle." She pulled away, her expression hardening. "But not anymore. I want to help." Her voice was firm, determined. "I want to protect the firm from Mark. I want to make things right." Her transformation was a relief, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. I had an ally. I wasn't alone, but Mark wasn't done. He was cornered, desperate, and ready to strike back. A week later, my office. I was served with legal papers. A courier delivered the envelope. I opened it, stared at the documents. Disbelief washed over me. Mark was suing me for control of Harrison Financial Group. The lawsuit claimed I was mentally incompetent, incapacitated by grief, unable to manage the company. They were using Laura's death against me. The ultimate betrayal, but it got worse. The lawsuit also claimed that Mark had been the driving force behind the company's success for years, a silent partner. His contributions ignored. The audacity was staggering, and attached to the lawsuit was a document, a power of attorney, supposedly signed by me 5 years ago, shortly after Laura's death, granting Mark full control over my finances. And the company, the second twist, the nuclear option. The signature looked like mine. Perfect. Identical. But I had never seen this document before. I had never signed it. He had forged it. He wasn't just trying to steal money. He was trying to steal my life, my identity, my legacy. "He's trying to extort you," Sarah said when I showed her the papers. Her face was pale with anger. "He knows he can't win with a forgery," she continued, "but he thinks he can bleed you dry with legal fees, public accusations, force you to settle, to give him the company, to save my reputation. He thought he had me cornered. He thought I would fold. He underestimated me. The lawsuit immediately affected the firm. The news spread like wildfire. Wall Street is a small town. Reputation is everything. Our biggest clients started pulling their accounts. The stock price plummeted. Harrison Financial was on the line. My life's work hanging by a thread. Emily and I worked tirelessly, reassuring clients, protecting the employees, fighting the rumors. The pressure was immense. The stress was unbearable. But we held firm. We refused to back down. Then Chloe tried one last manipulation, the ace up her sleeve. She called me, her voice sweet as honey, dripping with fake sincerity. "David," she cooed, "we have wonderful news." I waited, my stomach churning. "I'm pregnant." My heart leaped. A grandchild, Laura's grandchild. The one thing I wanted more than anything. "We want you to be part of this journey," she continued, her voice softening. "But this lawsuit, it's causing so much stress. It's bad for the baby." The manipulation was masterful, cruel, calculated. "Please, David," she pleaded, "just settle with Mark. Give him what he wants, for the sake of your grandchild." They were using an unborn child as a bargaining chip, a human shield. The depth of their depravity knew no bounds. Did I fall for it? Did I sacrifice everything for the hope of a grandchild? "That's wonderful news, Chloe," I said, my voice cold, steady. "But we have serious issues to resolve." I paused, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "We can talk about the baby when the lawsuit is dropped, and the stolen money is returned." I hung up. My hands were trembling. Had I just sacrificed my relationship with my grandchild? Or had I saved them from a life of manipulation and greed? The uncertainty was agonizing, but the decision was made. The firm was bleeding money. The legal fees were mounting. The SEC investigation was looming. I was faced with the terrifying prospect of losing everything. My company, my reputation, my freedom, but I refused to let them win. I refused to let them destroy me. It was time to end this, once and for all. We scheduled a deposition, the final showdown. The deposition, a large conference room. My lawyer's firm. The atmosphere was heavy, the air thick with tension. I sat at one side of the table, flanked by Sarah and my legal team. Emily sat beside me, her presence a source of strength. Mr. Henderson was there too, as a witness, ready to testify. We waited. The silence stretched, the clock ticked. Mark and Chloe arrived late. A power move, a sign of disrespect. The clock ticked. Mark and Chloe arrived late. A power move, a sign of disrespect. Accompanied by their lawyer, Mr. Peterson. Slick, overconfident, adjusting his cufflinks constantly. They looked smug, confident. They thought they had me cornered. They thought they had already won. "Let's make this quick," Mr. Peterson began, his voice oily, dismissive. "My clients are willing to settle." He laid out the terms. A thinly veiled extortion attempt. Mr. Mark Harrison assumes control of Harrison Financial Group. In return, he will provide a generous retirement package for Mr. David Harrison. A golden parachute, to silence me, to make me disappear. "We are not here to discuss settlement," Sarah said, her voice cold and precise. She hadn't even looked at Mr. Peterson. She looked directly at Mark. "We are here to discuss fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and insider trading." She opened her briefcase, laid out the documents on the table. The evidence of their betrayal, laid bare, for everyone to see. The bank records, the shell company, the gambling debts, the townhouse purchase. Mark's face turned pale. The smugness evaporated. "This proves nothing," he protested, his voice cracking. "It was an investment, a legitimate investment." "It proves fraud," Sarah corrected him, her voice calm, factual. "And we have the testimony of the casino manager and the real estate agent." She didn't stop there. She laid out the power of attorney, the centerpiece of their extortion attempt, and beside it, the report from the forensic document examiner. "The signature is a forgery," Sarah stated, her voice echoing in the silent room. A clumsy one at that. Mr. Peterson's professional mask slipped. He realized the gravity of the situation. "We have analyzed the ink," Sarah continued, relentless. "The pressure, the digital footprint of the document creation." She looked at Mark, her eyes blazing with contempt. "It was created 3 weeks ago, not 5 years ago. The lie exposed, the trap sprung." And finally, Sarah continued, delivering the killing blow. "We have the evidence of the insider trading." She laid out the documents provided by Mr. Henderson. The offshore accounts, the manipulated stock prices, the testimony of Mr. Henderson. Mark was cornered, trapped, exposed. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, jumping to his feet, his face red with rage. "You're trying to steal my birthright. I built this company." The delusion was absolute, the denial complete. "You built nothing," I finally roared, the emotion breaking through. The anger, the pain, the betrayal. "I built it," I shouted, pointing at him. "While you were gambling my money away, stealing from our clients, and abusing the people I care about." He looked at me, his eyes filled with hatred. "I'd rather burn it to the ground than let you keep it from me," he screamed, his face contorted in rage. That's when the doors of the conference room opened. 2 FBI agents walked in. Calm, professional. The silence that followed was absolute. "Mr. Mark Harrison?" one of the agents said, looking directly at Mark. Mark froze, his face drained of color. "You are under arrest for securities fraud, insider trading, and conspiracy." The words echoed in the room. The final verdict. Mark looked at me, his eyes wide with fear, disbelief. "Dad?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "You called the FBI? On your own son?" The question hung in the air, the accusation, the betrayal. "You gave me no choice," I said, my heart breaking. The words tasted like ash. "You tried to destroy everything I built. You tried to destroy me." The agents handcuffed him, the metallic click echoing in the silent room. "You ruined my life," he choked out. tears streaming down his face. "No, Mark," I said, my voice heavy with sorrow. "You ruined your own life. I just stopped you from ruining mine." Chloe started screaming, hysterical, incoherent. She lunged at me, her nails clawing at my face. Emily pulled her back. The agents restrained her. Mr. Peterson closed his briefcase with a snap, walked out of the room without a backward glance. It was over. The war was over, but the battlefield was littered with the ruins of my family. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The scandal rocked Wall Street. Harrison Financial Group was investigated by the SEC. We cooperated fully, provided all the evidence. Transparency was our only salvation. The firm survived, barely. We paid a massive fine, but we were allowed to continue operating. Our integrity saved us. I stepped down as CEO. I needed to heal, to rebuild. Sarah Jenkins took over, leading the firm with strength, integrity, the leader I always knew she would be. Mark's trial was a media circus, the story of the entitled son who tried to destroy his father. He was found guilty, on all charges, sentenced to 10 years, federal prison. Chloe filed for divorce shortly after the conviction. She also admitted the truth, the final, cruel truth. She had never been pregnant. The manipulation had been her final, desperate play. She was left with nothing. Her reputation ruined, her lifestyle gone. Poetic justice. Emily, transformed by the experience, dedicated herself to philanthropy, managing the family foundation, giving back to the community. She became the daughter I had always hoped she would be. Strong, compassionate, honest. The healing process was slow. The wounds were deep. The betrayal had left scars that would never fully fade. But we were healing, together. A year later, Thanksgiving, the table was much smaller this time. My apartment, just me, Emily, and Mr. Henderson, smiling warmly. The food was simple. The atmosphere was quiet, honest, real. We talked about the foundation, Emily's plans, Mr. Henderson's memories of Laura. No tension, no resentment, just the quiet comfort of a family rebuilt, a real family, bound by love, trust, and respect. After dinner, my study. I was looking at Laura's picture on the mantel, her smiling face. The phone rang. A collect call from a federal correctional facility. I accepted the charges, my hand trembling slightly. "Dad?" The voice was hesitant, broken, stripped of its arrogance. "It's me, Mark. I know. I just wanted to say," he hesitated. "Happy Thanksgiving." "Happy Thanksgiving, Mark." A long pause, filled with the weight of everything unspoken. "Dad," he whispered, "I'm sorry for everything." The words hung in the air, simple words, but they carried the weight of a year of reflection. Loss, hitting rock bottom. "I understand now," he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "I understand what I did." "I know you are, son." "I deserved this," he said, his voice breaking. "I deserved to lose everything." He started crying softly. "I was the embarrassment," he confessed. "I was the pathetic one. The realization, the acceptance, the first step towards redemption." "I love you, Dad," he whispered, "and I hope one day I can earn the right to call you family again." "I love you too, son," I said, a single tear rolling down my cheek. I hung up the phone, sat there for a long time, the tears flowing freely now. It wasn't a perfect ending. It was messy, complicated, deeply bittersweet, but it was real. I had lost the son I thought I knew, but I had gained something more valuable: honesty, integrity, and the true meaning of family. I learned that sometimes the hardest lessons are the most important ones, and sometimes the only way to save your children is to let them fall and trust that they will learn how to stand up again. I looked at Laura's picture, her smiling face seeming to glow in the firelight. "We did okay, Laura," I whispered. "They're learning. We did okay." The scars remained, the memories lingered, but the wounds had closed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.